The streets of New York City for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade as the NYPD steps up security.
NYPD says some of its dogs can now pick up the scent of explosives from hundreds of feet away.
Today, President Trump will speak with American heroes sacrificing their Thanksgivings with their families. The Pentagon shipping more than 300,000 pounds of turkey around the world.
I'm here.
Welcome back.
You're here. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Look how slick Griff looks in the studio.
My Thanksgiving is complete. I have New York City hair, which has become a thing, maybe my favorite thing in the entire world, along with the Thanksgiving Ed Henry Ensemble. It was Ed Henry and Rachel, who took me to Brooks Brothers, that taught me to wear a pocket square.
You look amazing.
We have a Thanksgiving time pocket square. I feel like $1 million.
And they taught us when we were at the store. They spent a significant amount of time teaching us how to match the tie with, you can't be too matchy-matchy.
Job.
Look at this.
That's right.
Learned
Can't be
it.
too matchy-matchy.
Yeah, that's what they told us. And they taught us this. Remember this ruffled kind of messier.
We have a
He
straight
does it
one.
very straight.
Yeah.
By the way, we tease you sometimes in the studio. I got to reveal. I got to be honest with you. When you're out, but you're at the border. And in your first live shot, sometimes your hair is like all the way down, like you haven't combed it at all. And then at 7, it's slicked back a little bit. And then at 8, it's really slicked back. But when you're in the studio, it looks amazing from like the first minute.
In Tijuana, he's a surfer, Griff.
We give you a pass because you're out in the field.
So not only are we going to give you turkey cooking tips today, we can also give you tips on how to dress properly. Maybe get the New York City hair, the tie.
You got to dress to the nines
ensemble.
for the Thanksgiving
It's Thanksgiving.
table. Griff is now you're going to be the person you look up to.
He is. And the other thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at your photos. So email us your photos from Thanksgiving. We want to see them. Email them to foxnews.com.
Yeah, and we would also love if you throw in there what you're thankful for this year.
Show what you're thankful for.
Talk about your family a little bit. We mentioned as well the folks, the Butterball folks.
Yes, that's what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, because I think that's exciting. We have the Butterball lady here. She's going to tell us everything.
Here she's in our green room
There
right
she
now.
is.
Hey.
Beth Summers is here. Email us your last-minute Turkey Day questions. Again, friends@foxnews.com.
And she'll be here all morning. She's going to answer all your questions. So email them in. We'll get them answered live on television.
And it's daunting to cook at Thanksgiving, particularly if it's your first. So do not change the channel for all 3 hours because you may need to be rescued. I will share a story that's going to get me in trouble with my wife right off the bat, right out of the gate. We're going to do this. But
you sure you want to do this?
I've been married 20 years. The very first one, firemen came to our house. I'll tell the story later.
Because of you or your wife?
My wife. I was working. I was working at a radio station. I came home to fire trucks in front of my house.
The first time a woman has to do the turkey by herself, or the spouse, whoever, it is very stressful, and that's why it's great that we
We're going to have
have
family here later, so some of our family, all of us, so we will be able to tell some more little tales out of school, I suppose. But politics still dominating, as we do every morning. Not just a little bit of fun, but a lot of serious talk, especially what's going on down at the border.
That's right. President Trump giving the green light to expand the military mission on the border as thousands of migrants wait to claim asylum.
The plan includes using force if there's an attack.
Big story, and Garrett Tenney is live in Washington with more on this new White House order. Good morning, Garrett.
Hey, good morning, y'all, and happy Thanksgiving to you. This new order from the White House allows the military to have expanded powers on the border that includes the ability to protect Border Patrol agents and briefly detain migrants. Defense Secretary James Mattis told reporters the order won't significantly change the troops' role at the border. They will remain unarmed, and if Border Patrol agents come under attack, military police armed with shields and batons could step in to help. Mattis said if troops are given powers to detain migrants, though, it would only be for a few minutes, describing it this way. If someone's beating on a border patrolman and if we were in a position to have to do something about it, we could stop them from beating on them and take them over and deliver them to a patrolman who would then arrest them for it. Now, the important caveat here is that this new order allows Secretary Mattis to expand the military's duties, but he says that will only happen if the Department of Homeland Security requested, and at this point, that hasn't happened. Rachel Griffin, Ed?
Garrett, happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Garrett.
Appreciate you coming in.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, I was just going to say, Griff, you were just down there not too long ago. There's so many different reports. On the one hand, we're hearing, that they could use force. On the other hand, we're hearing that, hey, there's nothing there.
Sounds
it's not
more
a
like
problem.
self-defense than lethal force. You say that lethal force is an option if a situation gets out of control on the border. This is more to help protect Border Patrol agents.
And it's a cabinet order, right? So the White House has issued this to stay within the bounds of the 1878 Posse Comitatus, which basically says under our Constitution that you're not going to let the military take action, here at the homeland. But at the end of the day, you have this sort of unprecedented swelling on the border. You have assaults on our Border Patrol that happen every single day. Many of them don't get reported. I've been down there. They talk about the fact that they're being assaulted. And that's why in Garrett's report, he said that if the military does intervene, it will only be for a temporary time, a few minutes, to get control of the situation. Because without something in place to properly secure the situation, should it become
Why can't the Border Patrol do it themselves? Why do they need the military backup?
It's a numbers game.
Okay.
Because if you've got 2,000 to 8,000 people swelling across the border and they start to assault, remember, our Border Patrol, who get up every single day, many of them on patrol right now, are not facing just families looking to surrender themselves at points other than the point of entry, but also narcotics, drug dealers, smugglers, and they have skin in the game. They want to fight back.
At the crux of what President Trump has been saying, going back to the 2016 campaign. These Border Patrol agents are under assault, that it's essentially an invasion. You've heard people in the mainstream media tell the president that's not true, whereas General Mattis and now Secretary Mattis has gone down to the border to say, yes, we're moving forward with this order. That certainly suggests to me that the defense secretary believes that these Border Patrol agents need some support and logistical help. And let's remember, the U.S. military is the greatest fighting force in the world. So if you need logistical help, they would be the ones to turn to in a situation like this. And this also ties into the battle the president had yesterday with Chief Justice John Roberts. Because remember, you had this federal judge of the Ninth Circuit out west, which often gives very liberal decisions, blocking the president from saying that if you're seeking asylum, you have to go through certain centers at the border. This judge saying, no, you can't do that. The president a couple of days ago lashed out at the judge and called him an Obama judge.
Well, and what, you have to step back for a second. As you mentioned, ports of entry, we have them for a reason, so that you come legally in here. And the president has really gotten a lot of praise from the Border Patrol in particular, saying, please help us drive traffic to that port of entry. Now, there is the pro-immigration folks that said, no, we don't have time to wait in line. We're going to go across the river or around a fence and coming anyway and claim asylum. So the president takes a step to say, we're no longer going to allow you to claim asylum if you cross illegally, if you commit a crime of crossing illegally. Now you have what is unprecedented, which is a judge out in San Francisco that's going to rule not only in the case of a California situation, but he's going to rule universally across the 2,000 miles of U.S. border, anywhere the administration has to accept it.
Well, here's what Chief Justice Roberts, this is how he responded to President Trump's criticism of that judge. He said, we do not have Obama judges or Trump judges, Bush judges or Clinton judges. What we have is an extraordinary group of dedicated judges doing their level best to do equal rights, right, to those appearing before them. That independent judiciary is something we should all be thankful for.
A pretty extraordinary statement from the Chief Justice. The president was very quickly back on Twitter to fire back, saying, sorry, Chief Justice John Roberts, but you do indeed have Obama judges, and they have a much different point of view than the people who are charged with the safety of our country. It would be great if the Ninth Circuit was indeed an quote-unquote independent judiciary. But if it is, why are so many opposing views on the border and safety cases filed there? And why are a vast number of those cases overturned? Please study the numbers. They're shocking. We need protection and security. These rulings are making our country unsafe, very dangerous, and unwise. The president's point there, among others, I believe, is that he's saying that basically you see liberal groups, they're going venue shopping. They say, we want to block, the travel ban. We want to go after this asylum issue. Let's go to the Ninth Circuit. It's very liberal. It's out in San Francisco. We're gonna block the president. And then later on down the road, the Ninth Circuit gets obliterated because their opinion is not actually going to hold water.
Well, it's interesting to me that Chief Justice Roberts would attack President Trump and paint him in the light that he's the first to criticize the Supreme Court, because President Obama himself, we have tape. Here is President Obama criticizing the Supreme Court. Listen.
Last week, the Supreme Court reversed a century of law that I believe will open the floodgates for special interests, including foreign corporations, to spend without limit in our elections. I'm confident that the Supreme Court will not take what would be an unprecedented extraordinary step of overturning a law that was passed by a strong majority of a democratically elected Congress.
And look, if Democrats think the judiciary is so independent and they want to be so fair, why were they weaponizing 35, 36-year-old information against Brett Kavanaugh to try to block him from getting to the Supreme Court? This is an ideological game. They know it. And the president fired back on Twitter. Meanwhile, the last president was in the Rose Garden and was at a State of the Union address going after the Supreme Court. So come on.
Another example of the double standard. They both did the same thing. They both criticized the Supreme Court, but only Donald Trump gets called out by it. I want to just mention, listen, when you appoint a judge, all of us have biases. All of us lean conservative or more liberal or whatever. You have conservative, you have liberal judges. The difference is whether you have an activist judge. So if you are following the Constitution, you can be conservative, but you follow the Constitution. The problem, I think, is that so many liberal judges follow their heart and their ideology instead of the Constitution.
Good point.
That's a problem.
Now,
and that's the problem the president's trying to talk about.
With the powers invested in me, I'm going to toss to Jillian Mealy. Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh,
for Little
hello.
News.
Happy Thanksgiving. Good to be here with you guys. So let's get you caught up on some of the other headlines that we're following, starting with this. And this is new overnight. Nearly 300 passengers stranded for hours when their train splits in two. Amtrak cars coming apart near New York's state capitol on one of the coldest days of the year. A passenger says he heard a pop, then smelled electrical burning. No one was hurt, and another train took passengers to New York City. It's unclear what caused the problem. AAA expects 54 million Americans to travel 50 miles or more for the holiday. The Woolsey fire in California finally contained after burning for nearly 2 weeks, but that area near Malibu isn't out of the woods yet. A rainstorm today could trigger dangerous mudslides. And up north, the rain forcing campfire evacuees out of their tents and into shelters. The wet weather could also complicate search efforts around the state. 86 people are confirmed dead and 700 are still unaccounted for. Today, President Trump will speak with American heroes, sacrificing their Thanksgivings with their families to serve our country. But even though they're not at home, our troops will still get special dinners. The Pentagon shipping more than 300,000 pounds of turkey around the world, along with 81,000 pies, 12 times as many as last year. And how about this? 7,800 gallons of eggnog. Let's look at your headlines. That sounds like a party.
A lot of eggnog.
I know.
It's not spiked. We should.
Right. No, but we do thank them for their service and missing the holidays.
Absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving. A deepening murder mystery right here in the New York area. A family of 4 found dead in their burned mansion in New Jersey. Now the homeowner's brother is charged with setting his own home on fire. Is there a connection? We're digging into the investigation. This mystery next. Couple and their 2 kids found dead in a mansion fire, now part of a devastating murder mystery in New Jersey. The brother of the murdered homeowner has now been arrested for setting his own home on fire just hours earlier in the same day. Could there be a connection? Here to weigh in, former police officer and federal mafia prosecutor Joe Peters. Joe, good to have you here.
Good to be here, Ed.
So Keith Canera, he, his wife, and 2 kids, their house was set on fire. And when the police got there, it turns out that the wife and kids had been stabbed inside. The husband's outside, and he was shot. So in addition to their home being set on fire and burned down, and now Paul Canero, his brother, is in custody. What in the world happened here?
Yeah, it's a very strange and bizarre circumstance. Paul Canero, the brother, earlier in the day, it is alleged, and he's been arrested for it, set his own house on fire.
Some miles away in New Jersey.
Some miles away, with his family inside. They all survive. The fire's put out. About 7 hours later, it is discovered his brother Keith's house is ablaze. Inside, Keith's wife and 2 children are found stabbed and burned.
And we're showing that in Colts Neck, New Jersey. I understand Bruce Springsteen owns a house in that town. It's sort of a very
affluent
nice
area.
Affluent. People have a lot of property, sort of near horse country in New Jersey. You see the blaze there. And in the initial reports, I had heard about the fire, but didn't realize. I thought they potentially had died from the fire, but you're saying they were stabbed inside.
They were murdered first, the wife and children in the house. The brother was murdered. He was found outside the house, but with gunshot wounds.
Wow. Okay, so the 2 brothers owned a couple of businesses together, a consulting company, a tech company, I believe, and a pest company. What if you're an investigator trying to piece this together? You see two fires, the murders. Where do you start?
Well, the good news is, and not to use that word because there's no good news here, but it's a closed circle. You don't have a random killer. You don't have random victims that you need to identify. You still have to identify the bodies inside the house, sadly, before you can charge a murder. So depending on how badly they're burned, fingerprints could be gone. Next, you go to dental records, and then finally DNA, even inside bone marrow.
But in terms of a motive, now
motive, you
can go
look at they were in business together in two businesses. That's motive number one. Could be a personal situation between their families. And again, this is pure speculation. One of them could have been involved in something the other wasn't happy with. And with someone
So
going
you
to go
go through
to the
for pot in Massachusetts. The drug seeing a lot of green during the first week of legal sales. State officials say $440,000 worth of pot was bought on the first day alone.
I see what you did there. Green.
Green. A monumental feud erupting as President Trump fires back at Chief Justice Roberts. Roberts issuing an extraordinary rebuke of the commander-in-chief, Obama's judge's remark. So how will this play out?
Here to weigh in, former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, contributing editor of National Review, and Fox News contributor, you know him well, Andrew McCarthy. Good morning and happy Thanksgiving, sir.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Morning. Happy Thanksgiving.
So you were an early proponent of this idea that these are Obama judges on the Ninth Circuit out west, and that some of their decisions have been downright absurd.
Yeah, well, you know, to say that they're Obama judges is like saying the sky is blue. You know, it's not really rocket science to figure this out. Look, these are transnational progressives in the Obama mold. That's the reason they were picked. It's the reason they were put on the bench. Our hope on the conservative side was that President Trump was going to put conservatives on the bench who would have a conservative judicial philosophy for, 10, 20, 30 years after the president is out of office. That's the way it works. But the Obama judges are of a particular bent of mind where they're very sympathetic to open borders claims. The whole idea of national sovereignty is something that they see as passé, and they want to push the needle more in the direction of global organizations. And they think of the Constitution and the courts rather than the place where Americans go to protect themselves from government action and other action. They think of the Constitution as kind of a global charter of rights that everybody can use, including use as protection against the United States government and the national security measures that our elected representatives take. It's just a philosophy of governance.
So, Andrew, let me just focus you real quick, though, because we're talking about specifically one judge, a federal judge in the Ninth Circuit out in San Francisco, specifically as it relates to the president in this asylum issue. Are we seeing an unprecedented level of judicial activism, specifically out of this court, that the president was criticizing?
Well, I don't know if it's unprecedented. You're seeing a lot of judicial activism. You know, we had a lot of judicial activism, for example, in the 60s and 70s. You get these spates of judicial activism. Guess when they happen? When left-wing judges are spread throughout the courts. And I would point out that in 8 years, Obama put 329 of these judges on the federal bench. You know, we all look at the Supreme Court. Where the action is in federal litigation is in the lower federal courts where most of the rulings are made. But if it wasn't targeted, why do you think people would go to these particular courts to bring these suits?
Right. How has Trump done in terms of putting his judges in federal level?
He's doing it. Rachel, he's doing a terrific job. They've gotten, in terms of a 2-year period, they got close to a record, if not a record number of judges on the circuit courts of appeal. Now, there are a lot of vacancies on the district courts. I think there's about 111 the last time I looked, and it's really vital to fill those. And I must say, as long as you have divided Congress, the one thing they can get done is to get these judges confirmed.
And now he's got a bigger majority in the Senate to try to fill some of those judicial vacancies. Very quick. Is it smart for the president politically, though, to take on Chief Justice Roberts with that tweet when he's now the ideological center of the court and you need him on some other issues?
You know, Ed, I don't want to blame President Trump here because I think it was unseemly for the Chief Justice to go after the president in the first place, which is clearly what he did. But that said, these are 5-4 cases, most of them, and Trump is giving the Chief Justice a lot of incentive to vote with the left bloc, which if he does, the Supreme Court stops being, you know, the place where President Trump can block the judicial activism.
Very important point to make. Andrew McCarthy, thanks for breaking it down like that. We really appreciate
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
All right, coming
Happy
up.
Thanksgiving.
You too. Iran sending just a downright chilling warning to our troops overseas. The new threat involving missiles. That's next.
And I'm very concerned about this. Will the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade balloons fly today? Adam Klotz is the man of the hour live along the route.
We should have sent Griff. He wants to talk.
Griff, I know you're really excited about this. As you can tell, Paw Patrol back behind me along with 15 other giant balloons. Will they fly? Well, the winds are getting right up around that level.
This parade, and we're hoping it goes
Look at that
up.
flag right in the middle, by the way. That's right outside our building. That looks awesome.
It is.
Against Radio City and the Christmas lights.
Absolutely.
Picture perfect. We're going to talk to Adam Klotz. I can't wait about this wind. I mean, this is 92nd annual Macy's
here we
Day
go.
Thanksgiving, but I'll tell you.
We got some pictures.
Oh, good. This is Allison
Oh,
from
what a
Massachusetts.
beautiful
She's
photo.
thankful for her 3 little girls who she says inspire and motivate her every day.
I'm inspired looking at that photo.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Carol's 5-year-old granddaughter, Rosie, wrote in her diary last night about how excited she is to see her family and try some foods like, yes, turkey and mashed potatoes this Thanksgiving. Sounds like she's learning pretty early.
She is. So that's a little note to say forever. And Glenn from Michigan is thankful for his family made possible by God. Amen to that.
That is awesome.
Thanks for emailing those. And send us more of those photos. We want to see them.
Friends at FoxNews.com.
Friends at FoxNews.com.
All right.
All right, today it's expected to be the coldest Thanksgiving in a century. I brought the cold weather from Wisconsin down here to New York City. And it's an Arctic blast, and heavy winds could ground the balloons at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Now, we sent Adam Klotz. I think we should have sent Griff because he is jazzed about this, Adam. He wants to be standing next to you doing color commentary.
Griff, well, I'm glad that you're loving it. I'm loving it. And you know what? I think I actually might have some good news for you guys. This is what's going to be coming up. I do want to start with those balloons that you've been talking about. Back behind me, that's Paw Patrol. There are 16 of these giant balloons. Now, the police, the NYPD, have set up devices all along the parade route talking about, are we going to fly these? Well, the criteria is 23-mile-an-hour winds consistently or 34-mile-an-hour gusts. And so far this morning, we have not reached that criteria. So it is seeming as though these are going to get to fly. I would like to dive into some of our weather maps. I've been tracking some of these gusts throughout the morning, and currently we've looked at gusts getting up only into the mid-20s or so. That's the case at both of the area airports. Now, when you add in that wind, it is going to be cold. So if folks who are going to be outside, they are going to be dealing with some cold temperatures. It feels like in a lot of cases here across New England getting down into single digits. Unfortunately, that isn't going to be changing for us. The cold temperatures are going to be here. But Griff, that's your good news. It does seem as though the winds are going to be low enough that they're going to be able to fly these big balloons. On top of that, yeah, it's cold, but we're going to heat up. We've got the Pentatonics. We've got Sugarland. We've got John Legend. It's setting up to be a good show. I know you're excited, Griff, but I'm just like rattling all these things off to make you more and more jealous.
I am jealous.
That's what I'm going for here.
And we're concerned because 1971 was the last time that they grounded balloons, and there's 3.5 million people lining the streets. It's a big deal. I got to ask you though, Adam, what is the coldest part of your body right now?
Answer
Don't
carefully.
answer.
It's my feet. Well, what do you mean don't answer? What do you think I was going to say? It's my feet.
I thought you were going to say your nose.
What I will say is that behind you is Paw Patrol. I have a 2-year-old who's going to absolutely flip out because he's obsessed with the Paw Patrol. So hopefully that balloon will launch.
All right. We'll be getting back to you, Adam.
It's going to fly, I think. I think so.
Yeah.
Thanks, Adam.
Yep.
Warm up.
All right.
Warm up.
All right. We told you we have a Butterball expert, Beth Summers. She's in our green room answering your questions. We're already getting some questions, Beth. This comes from Maria in Columbus, Ohio. She asks, what's the best way to cook a turkey so that it's juicy? What makes it juicy?
That's a really great question. We get that a lot at the Butterball Turkey Talk line. And really all you need to do is use a meat thermometer to make sure that you cook your turkey to the perfect temperatures. You're looking for 170 in the breast and 180 in the thigh. And if you cook to those temperatures, no matter how you cook your turkey, it will be moist, delicious, and juicy.
So the trick is you have to have a meat thermometer. Some people don't do that, and it's a big mistake, isn't it?
Yes, a lot of people say, oh, I'll wiggle the leg, and when the leg falls off, it's done, or when the juices run clear,
Get your
it's
meat
done.
thermometer.
Those two things, when that happens, it's way above the temperatures it needs to be at. So your meat thermometer is really your best friend.
Okay, Beth, so this is the universal question on Thanksgiving Day. Every chef will cross this threshold whether they want to or not, and that is what David from New York City asked, to stuff or not to stuff?
Oh, it's like the eternal question. So for me, the answer is definitely stuff.
Right.
So I think this depends on how you grew up and what your mom did, and if you liked her turkey, you want to do hers. It's absolutely okay and safe to stuff your turkey, but again, you need to use your meat thermometer because your stuffing isn't safe to eat until the stuffing itself is 165 degrees. So if you stuff your turkey, it's safe. Just check the stuffing itself for the temperature.
My husband won't eat the stuffing if it's not the one from the bird because
I love
that's the juiciest, best one. Okay, so here's another question, and a lot of people are tricked by this one. How often do you need to baste, or do you even need to baste?
If you buy a Butterball turkey, you do not need to baste it. It's because it's pre-brined for you.
Good answer.
It's super moist and juicy. And actually, think about it this way. Your turkey's skin is like a raincoat. When you pick up juices and spoon them or put them back over the turkey, it just rolls back off into the bottom of the pan. It doesn't penetrate into the meat itself. And all you've done is opened up the oven door, let a lot of heat out, and prolonged your cooking time.
You're throwing something heavy out there, Beth. So you're saying when you baste, you're not actually moisturizing, making the meat more moist.
I know, isn't your mind blown? But it's actually, that's the truth. It doesn't do anything.
You're just making your cooking
All right.
time longer.
Yeah.
All right, those are awesome questions. Give us more questions. We have more. Beth, you're going to be here all for the whole show, correct?
That's right.
All right, so email us at friends@foxnews.com. I'm sure you have more questions for her.
Thank you.
We appreciate
All right.
it. Jillian, to
Stuffed
baste
or not
to
stuffed?
baste?
I literally know nothing about this. I'm a vegetarian, so I'm mashed potatoes all day long.
I thought maybe you're one of those millennials that asked whether to put it in the microwave. Or
No.
Okay.
Oh, no.
I'm not quite that young. All right, let's take a look at your headlines right now. And this, we start here. Oh, God, I don't want to die. Those are the chilling last words written by an American missionary hours before being killed by an isolated tribe. According to journals that his mother shared with the Washington Post, John Allen Chow tried making contact with the tribesmen on a remote Indian island. When he arrived, Chow says he yelled, quote, "My name is John, I love you, and Jesus loves you." It's not clear how he was killed. Iran sending a message to the U.S. Your carriers and bases are within reach of our missiles. A commander in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard threatening targets in the United Arab Emirates, Afghanistan, and Iran, saying, quote, "We can hit them if we make a move." Tensions have been rising with Iran since President Trump pulled out of the Obama-era nuclear deal in May. And you have to see this story. A Good Samaritan races into action to catch a baby thrown from a burning building. The baby's parents punching out a window and tossing the baby as their Dallas home filled with fire.
I told her, just drop it, I'm going to catch the baby. So she finally trusted me and she dropped the baby and I hurried up and caught the baby.
It is incredible. The cause of the fire is under investigation. No one is killed. So just when a city thinks they found the perfect Christmas tree, everything goes wrong. Watch this. The top of the 55-foot blue spruce snapping right off as it's cut down in Youngstown, Ohio. No one was hurt, but I guess you could look at it like now you have two trees, like the mini tree that's the top and then the big tree.
Yeah, now
right?
it's just a 50-foot tree.
Two for the price of one.
I mean, it's an amazing 50-foot tree.
Yeah.
You gotta make lemonade out of this.
Exactly.
It's still a beautiful tree, no question,
is.
right?
Yeah.
The tree guy, it's like you had one job. And you broke the tree. Not fair, not fair.
It's better
All right.
it happened before it was decorated.
All right.
That is a good point, Ed.
Now, look, it's been a year stuffed with politics. So who are the top political turkeys of the year? We're counting down the top 5.
You
next.
could not miss that. And speaking of turkeys, we've got a deep fried turkey in the studio. Our friends at Bass Pro